All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 4 of the Fast, Easy Success Marketing Insider podcast.
The Fast, Easy Success Marketing Insider, the uncut, uncensored podcast, bringing you the refreshing, no fluff, no BS views in business, sales, and marketing you desire. Your host, author, marketing strategist, direct response copywriter, and serial entrepreneur, Eric Barton, the results specialist. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, action.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the Fast, Easy Success Marketing Insider podcast. A lot of exciting things coming today and in the future for you. And make sure you hit that subscription button right now so you don't miss out on any of the value pack podcasts coming your way as well. And before we dive into our show and our very special guest today, I just want to welcome everybody to head over to FastEasySuccess.com. Go ahead and grab your business building tips sent directly to your email. And when you head over there, I'm also going to give you your free business cheat sheets, and these are going to help you with your websites, emails, and writing. All right, I'm excited to let's get in, dive in here. A special guest is joining you and I on our show today, and I've known about this man for quite a while now, and not only really enjoyed the things he has going on, definitely thought jamming with this man today would bring a lot of value to all you. And if you haven't discovered this man yet, you're definitely in for a treat today. He's internationally known as the expert in getting direct mail delivered, opened, and read. He's the co-founder and president of 3D Mail Results, and he generates huge returns for thousands of businesses each year who uses innovative and effective marketing strategies. So, I thought bringing him on with his unique yet tested marketing methods would definitely help you, and it's helped add millions of dollars in sales to a wide variety of businesses, anywhere from kitchen table run solo proprietors to national and multinational businesses mailing millions of pieces of mail a year. He's the go-to guy for many of the top marketers in the country for his 3D mail ideas and implementation, including Dan Kennedy, Bill Glazer, Frank Kern, and many others. He's also a sought-after speaker, and he speaks to thousands of business owners each year throughout the country. And as a matter of fact, in the last 8 years alone, plus, he's created some of the most successful direct mail campaigns out there. And they're specifically designed to give small businesses and entrepreneurs a leg up against the competition. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome to the show the co-founder and president of 3D Mail Results, Travis Lee. Travis, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with us today.
Well, thank you, Eric. Thanks for asking me to be on here with your group today. I'm excited to be with you and hopefully give these listeners a little bit of insight into what's out there in the direct mail world. So, perfect.
Yeah, and I thought that'd be a great time to do it, especially with the seasons where everybody's kind of laying off their marketing, and this is kind of the time to pick it up and really get the edge. And before we jump into your company and kind of direct mail in general. Can I ask, you real quick, just people that are not familiar with you, and how did you originally, get the bug or start out in the sales, marketing, and direct mail world?
Well, it's actually pretty funny. I'm a son of an entrepreneur, and
Okay.
In my intro you said I was the co-founder of 3D Mail, which I am, and I actually started this business with my father. And here's what he kind of did: is he, and we'll get into what all this stuff means, 3D mail and all that good stuff here, but he grew another business, completely separate business, using really unique, really different kinds of direct mail, what we now call 3D mail.
Okay.
So he grew that business relatively quickly doing that in the B2B world, targeting retail store owners. So that's where he did it. And so I kind of came on board with him about 9 years ago now. And I helped him with that business as well. But as we grew the business, we found that people were taking notice of all the kind of the outrageous or wacky direct mail we were doing, and people were asking us how we were doing it, where we were finding this stuff, how we were thinking of all this creative stuff. And really what ended up happening is the demand almost created the business for us, because we kind of got this name out there as these people who do this, like I said, this kind of outrageous direct mail. And so, like I said, we instead of turning everyone away and saying, oh, well, this is where we get it, go get it here, go rate a dollar store, go here, we decided, well, hey, we're a distributor right now. That's our business. We can bring in this weird, wacky 3D mail stuff, hold it in our warehouse, help people get it, mailed out for them, and we can have another business on the back of the first business. And that's
nice.
really how it started. And that was, like I said, 2006. So where are we at? Almost 8 years ago now.
Right.
That kind of became a brainchild and grew. So.
Nice. And I guess all the listeners might be wondering if they're not familiar with you or what we're talking about. Can you explain what 3D mail is?
Oh, absolutely. So 3D mail, if there's some students of direct mail on the line, you may have called it dimensional mail or lumpy mail. They all mean the same things. But
right.
what we mean when we say 3D, we literally mean three-dimensional mail. So if you think about all the mail you get, whether it's at home or at the office or at your home office, if they're one and the same, you get what we call flat mail, right? It's an envelope, it's a postcard, it's a self-mailing, newsletter or pamphlet or something like that. But if you look at it, I mean, geometrically it all looks the same. It's four corners, then it's flat and it lays there, and that's all it does. Well, like I said, when we say 3D mail, we literally mean three-dimensional mail. And so we actually, when we talk about 3D mail, we have what we classify as two different categories, if you will. So the first one are grabbers or inserts. So now picture in your mind's eye, if you can, something that you would put inside an envelope to give it a third dimension or a lump, along with your sales letter or whatever else you're having in there, in order to get it opened and read. So we put things in there. I'll just give you a short example. We do things like boomerangs, because we want people to come back to our business. We do things like, what else have we done? Little compasses for Are You Lost? Both of those are for client or customer reactivation to get back your lost customers. We do things like little sand timers because your time is running out on this great offer, this opportunity, or the deadline is coming, something like that. So we've got about 20 or 25 different things that we put into an envelope to make it 3D. We also have what we call, so that's grabbers and inserts. We also have what we call our self-mailing 3D mail items. And these are things that don't go into an envelope. They don't go into a box. They carry the sales message inside them, and they show up in the mailbox as they are. And here's what I mean by that. We've mailed things like little amber-colored pill bottles that you would get from your pharmacist with the cure for their headaches, right? And that's a real general headline. We'll get into more specifics as we go. But so little pill bottles. We've done real vinyl bank bags with the zipper at the top, like you have at the bank. We've mailed those. We've mailed little mini trash cans for Don't Trash This Opportunity. We have, this is a great one, we have little plastic messages in a bottle, like, picture, like Castaway or Lost or whatever, and they have a little message in a bottle, they roll up the message and throw it into the sea and hope someone finds it. Very similar idea. Ours are plastic, right, so they don't break in the mail. So we even have these little messages in a bottle. So, I mean, they're really cool, unique ways to get your direct mail noticed, opened, and read. So that's what we're up against with marketing.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, the world is so overcrowded, not even on online, offline in the mailbox. And like Gary Halbert used to say, we kind of stored our mail over the wastebasket, and we have A pile and B pile. And I know the answer to this, but I guess it's important to kind of share this. In your opinion, and kind of you touched on this, why do you think 3D mail really gets great results as it does versus the traditional mail?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it even goes deeper than direct mail. It goes with all your marketing and advertising. And the thing we're up against as business owners is we are competing for essentially attention, eyeballs and ears. Right. And so any kind of marketing that we do, we need to be sure that we're looked at, listened to, read, whatever that may be. And I mean that goes the same for television commercials, which, I mean, you're competing for attention. Now we've got TiVos and DVRs, and we skip right ahead. I mean, there's a reason that Super Bowl commercials cost so much money. It's because you're guaranteeing attention. You know what I mean? You guaranteed attention when you run a Super Bowl ad. That's why they're so expensive. I mean, the number of eyeballs on the TV certainly helps, but it's the fact that they're not going to skip you. And that goes a huge way to do it. And that goes with everything. Radio, you gotta get through radio advertising, billboards, yellow pages, pamphlets, flyers. I don't care what it is. You need to gain attention, because if your marketing message isn't seen, heard, or read, you can't make a sale. And so with direct mail in general now, we're able to kind of, limit our world in a good way. And here's what I mean by that. With TV and radio and some of those big broadcast media, you can target somewhat. You know what I mean? So if you run TV ads, you can target, the southeast part of your region. Well, even in the southeast part of your region, there might only be 25% of those people that even give a hoot at what you do, right? So there's so you're paying for all that media, but you're only really want to talk to those people. Well, direct mail just in general allows us to do that. We can get mailing lists. We can go get people who meet a certain demographic and geographic profile, and we can talk just to them. Now, to take it a step further with what we call 3D mail, not only are you able to talk to just the right person without wasting time, money, energy on people who you don't really care about to begin with, but with direct mail, we can target that. And with 3D mail now, we're almost ensuring their attention because we're going to do something unique, outrageous, outlandish that they've never seen before, that once they get it in their hands, they've got to pay attention to it. And like I said, if we're working on the premise that for advertising and marketing to work, you got to have eyeballs or ears on it, this is a great way to do it.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I think it was something like in I think it's the 1920s. They said the attention span of everybody was something like 20 minutes, and now it's like 9 seconds or less, basically less than a goldfish. So, like you said, you gotta grab them, hit them in the jugular, and just catch their attention. Yeah, that's great. Do you think really this could, as far as me personally, with what you're talking about in 3D mail, we can talk about this in a little bit too. I've used it on both sides, business to business and business to consumer. Have you found with other businesses, not even like, because me, obviously, I'm in the marketing world, but even like small offline businesses, do you find that it's worked for them in B2B or in B2C?
It's actually fairly amusing. So the B2B world says, oh yeah, that's cool, that's clever, I like it, but it would never work sending it to other businesses. They're too smart, they're too sophisticated, they're too this. And then the B2C world says, oh well, that's all well and good. That may work in the B2B world where you've got to gain attention easier, or it's harder to gain the attention, or you've got big transaction values, whatever it may be. So it's actually funny. You hear it from both sides. In my experience, and what I've seen doing this now for over 8 years, and even if it goes longer than that, this kind of stuff has been around since like the 40s. I mean, what we're doing ain't new. It's just we've kind of collected everything in one spot and made it available to people on a mass basis, whereas before you had to go do it by yourself. Right. I mean, this kind of stuff is not new at all. I mean, I'm kind of an old ad junkie, and so I go, I've got books with old ads in them, and I mean, this kind of stuff dates back, attaching pennies to the top of letters is basically what is at its essence 3D mail, where it was created, and that goes back to 40. So anyway, I digress on a little bit of history there. We find it works equally well in both the B2B and B2C worlds. Are there some differences? Sure, there's some subtle differences. But really, if you think about it, on the B2B side of things, a business per se doesn't buy anything. It's a person in a business. And that person is going to make buying decisions for their business more or less the same way they make a buying decision at home. Is it logical? Does it appeal to me? Do I feel like I'm getting a fair value? Is it something that I really need, want, or desire? All those psychological reasons resonate at the boardroom table or the kitchen table. And I'll often hear in the B2B world, well, I've got a committee, I've got to go through gatekeepers. Well, it's a great way to get through a gatekeeper. And I don't know if you're married or not, Eric, but I'm married. And even if I'm at home at my kitchen table with my wife, there's a committee of two making most decisions. You know what I mean? So it's even if you got a board, you got a committee boardroom to go and convince, or the committee of 2 or 3 or your family members at home. All that sales psychology, all the marketing psychology. Again, I'll say it again, but whether it's the kitchen table or the boardroom table, they really do go about their buying decisions the same way. Like I said, do I want it, need it, desire it? Do I feel like I'm getting a fair value for it? I mean, they all buy on those same premises.
Yeah, that's 100%. I mean, the old saying, people buy on emotions and justify with logic. Exactly. That's true. It's funny you said that too with the gatekeepers, because I used your bank bag that you offer. This was quite a while ago, and a lot of the clients that I work with now, I'll have them order some of those actually, and then they just give me some anyways. But I actually use that to get through to one of, I would say, I think they're in the top 2, if not the top 3 publishing companies in the country. I actually use that to get through to the president and actually make a contact. And he's out of the office literally 3 to 4 weeks, out of the month. So he comes in for a day or 2, checks his messages, and he's gone again. So I was able to not only get through the gatekeeper with this bank bag, I was able to actually get to him, the main person I was trying to contact too. So this is excellent. And I know a normal envelope wouldn't have done it. So, that really...
Yep. I mean, it's very similar to like a FedEx. So imagine when a FedEx shows up into your office, right? And it says like Rush Express, FedEx, 2-day or overnight or something like that. That goes directly to the person that it's supposed to go to. Well, that can get expensive. You're talking maybe $10-15 just for delivery. But now having said that, depending on your client value and if you got the right list and if you got the right kind of offer and stuff, it may be worth sending a $25 or $30 FedEx to guarantee attention. We've done that before. We've sent FedEx packages before, and that's a type of 3D mail. I mean, it's just it's a big box or a big envelope or a big, it's a big thing showing up that basically says urgent. You got to look at me now. Well, we're doing the same exact thing. I mean, granted, on a less expensive price than say a FedEx or something like that.
Right, and I think that's a major issue too. A lot of business owners, they're trying to do something the least expensive, which makes sense from a basically, I guess, a normal standpoint that I want to be, spend less and get more. But at the same time, when you can spend that extra money, invest more in your mailings and whatever other marketing you're doing, you can not only outspend the competition, you can gain better quality leads and customers, and that's what it's all about. Yeah,
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So I think people really shouldn't just kind of pass off direct mail because maybe it's more, expensive, or they feel it's more expensive. They should think about the quality, which will not only help their business, but make their life easier too, dealing with quality people.
Yep, and I mean direct mail. Just now to get off kind of then just go on a direct mail tangent for a little bit. Just general direct mail. I mean, and I'm talking postcards, regular flat sales letters. Here's the deal with all of that kind of stuff: is you need to use everything that you can afford to use. I do 3D mail, right? So I send a lot of direct mail using all of the stuff we've talked about. Well, I also use regular mail. Like I've got a regular old keep in touch newsletters that all my clients get, right? Just your regular run of the mill. How are things going? How's the family? Here's a special of the month. Regular old flat newsletter. I also use email. I also use outbound and inbound phone sales. So even though I sell and believe in direct mail, it's a big, don't get me wrong, it's a big part of what we do. I mean, to sell direct mail, you better be using direct mail. So we use it a lot. But it's a big portion of an even bigger pie that I use for my marketing. So just in general, so when you send out these kinds of campaigns, use a boomerang, then use a postcard, then use email, and then use an outbound phone call, and in any order you want. You know what I mean? So I mean, you've got to. I think it was Dan Kennedy who said this, and if there's, again, serious students of marketing on the line, that name should mean at least something to most of you. But I think him that said, I don't know of one single way to get 100 customers. I know of 100 different ways to get one customer. And we're all getting there. At the end of the day, we're all getting 100 at the end of the day. And so that's what you do. I mean, you've got to have a really diverse marketing mix. And this is part of it, and I believe it should be part of it. So I digress on just marketing.
No, that's a good point. And I mean, I guess I believe it was Kennedy too who said, the most dangerous number in marketing is 1. And like you said, just having one advertising channel or medium is not the way to go. You want to have a combination. But I will tell people that haven't tried direct mail out there that if you're strictly online, the most profitable, results you're going to get are by combining and taking those online leads offline. And you're going to see definitely a jump in conversions and again, a better quality as well, you'll see. So, I mean, do you think, I guess going back to cost, if we're talking about that, do you feel that it does cost more to do than regular mail?
Well, by and large, yes. 3D mail is going to cost more than just your regular run-of-the-mill direct mail, especially if you look at like a down-and-dirty postcard. That's about as inexpensive as you can get. Is it going to be more than that? Yeah, but that's about as cheap as you can get with any kind of direct mail. Now, when you step up and start doing some sales letters, it's not going to increase your cost tremendously. I mean, I shouldn't say that. There are plenty of ways to use 3D mail that aren't going to increase your cost tremendously. Now, having said that, here's what I believe in almost all of my marketing, and especially direct mail, is that we're not necessarily concerned with the volume of mail we can send out. And I'll give you a kind of an example here. You see this all the time. You guys get them especially at home. But you can picture, the oversized postcard from maybe the realtor or the dentist or maybe the gym in your neighborhood, and they'll send out 10,000 to every house within a 4-mile radius is going to get their
right.
Well, if not a single person calls or goes in or does what you want them to do, then you're still at zero at the end of the day, right? Well, what I encourage people to do is instead of sending out those 10,000 pieces, we're going to go back to an example I gave earlier. Let's narrow our world. So, yeah, theoretically, if I'm a dentist, every person in the neighborhood should be my customer, right? Well, there's certain income issues that you may want to concern. If they're under a certain threshold, they may not be the best customer for you. If they do or don't have insurance, if they do or don't have kids, if they're over 50 or under 50, all of those groups have a different message that is going to make them act upon your offer. And so to use our dentist world, you want to talk to a household with children differently than you talk to a household with people over 55, because they have significantly different dental needs, right? And that's just one example. So if we're going to send that same message to every house in the neighborhood, we have to send a generic message, and generic messages in general don't do as well. But if we can send a targeted messages and we can hit every house with people over 55, and now we can no longer have a generic message, we can have a targeted message. And now it's the same way with your direct mail and using 3D mail. We want to shrink our world. People always think, I want as many customers as I can have. Well, in actuality, you want to shrink your world and have as many good possible prospects as possible. A lot of P's in there, but that's true. You want to actually find your world within a niche, and it can be by campaign. I mean, if you're a dentist, you may do families with children and do people over 55 and do people with and without insurance, but you need to target your message to those people. And so with 3D mail, it might cost a little bit more money for you, but you really narrow down and drill down and target. And now instead of sending out those 10,000, maybe you're sending out 500 pieces to 3 different unique lists. So maybe you're sending out 1,500 pieces to 3 very unique sub-niches within your area. And that's how you make direct mail work, and that's how you make 3D mail work even better. Because all we're really concerned about is our return on investment. And so in the case of the dentist, if he spends maybe $2,000 or $3,000 on a 3D mail direct mail piece, he only needs a handful of customers from each of those pots to come in to make that very, very successful for him. He's maybe got an average client base of, let's say, $400 a year, 2 visits times $200 a year. Well, then you multiply that out times 5 or 6 responses. You multiply that out by now the husband and wife are coming in. You don't need very many to get to positive in the direct mail world.
Yeah, that's what's so awesome about direct mail too. Is I mean, like you said, you can go out and instead of wasting all these mailings, you can mail to specifically who you want to mail to. Your perfect target market. He's over 50, he has insurance, they make over, X amount a year, they have kids, whatever you're trying to target, you can do that. And unfortunately with online, it's really hard to get down to those, those exact demographics. In Google and things, you can go kind of general, and certain sites you can target and stuff with AdSense and all that. but nothing compared to direct mail, and that's the beauty of it. And that's a great point that you made. And so even if the costs are a little higher, you know, it's definitely, like you said, a better return on investment, and that's what you're looking for, the best return.
Yep, and you're exactly right. And I would caution people about being strictly online in places, because there's going to be a time where that world is going to change. And here's what I mean by that. At some point, I don't know when it's going to be. It's probably not going to be in 4 months, but it could be in 4 years, and it's certainly going to be in our lifetimes. They're going to start taxing every email you send out. I mean, just imagine.
Yeah.
They tax everything, right? So
Right.
you're going to pay a penny per email every time. You know what that's going to do? That's going to go support all the other ballooning budgets they have in other places, and they're going to start doing that. And then they're going to start taxing, you know, your well, what do you want to call it? Your pay-per-click stuff differently. Or
Right.
they may completely change it. They may make it so cookies are illegal, so you just outright illegal, so you can't target people like that anymore. You can't do retargeting anymore. I mean, all that stuff could happen. Is it all going to happen? Probably not, but it could. And so
Absolutely.
that's why you need, like we talked about, have as many different ways to make money as possible, so that if one of those faucets turns off or starts to trickle or is cut off by somebody or something, you still have faucets in all the other places filling up your bucket. And so it's very, very important to have all those marketing pieces working for you. So it's I can't stress enough how important it is to have lots of different ways to get customers and not just one way to do it. Whether that's and to stay in contact with them and do follow-up stuff to them. If you're getting leads, one way, and then only keeping them another, you need to do it multiple ways as well. Does that make sense? I mean, even to get the people in the pipeline and then keep in touch with them, you need to do lots of different things.
Absolutely, and that's why I always recommend too with clients that I work with too is like we were talking about the combination, you know, online, offline, go back online, go back offline. And, you know, you're constantly following up through different mediums and channels. Not only is it more kind of refreshing to the prospect and you're staying on the top of the mind, you're at their point, you know, wherever they're ready for you, there you are. And, you know, versus just spamming people and et cetera. And, you know, I guess some of the campaigns we kind of hit on, you know, some of the good ideas, the bottles, the lost bottles, and the bank bags that I've used with great success for myself and clients. What are some of the most successful maybe 3D mail ideas that you've seen, you know, since you work with so many different businesses and different niches?
Absolutely. So let's start with two consumer examples, and then remind me, and I'll get to a B2B example if I get too far off on a tangent as we go on this one.
Okay.
So these are probably the last two. One was in July. One was just last month, October, because she emailed me like October 5th or 6th and was really excited, so it must have been from her October mailing.
Okay.
So the first one was for an auto repair shop. And this is what I mean about really targeting your lists. The first one was for an auto repair shop. And he's got a good, nice shop, right? He's thriving. He's doing well. But he's certainly not at capacity. I mean, he's got open bays, you know, a lot, you know, with enough times that he's got to be doing proactive marketing. They're not just coming in without him doing anything. And so in this case, we targeted his inactive client list. And so we went to everybody on his list, past customer list, who had not been in his shop between 12 and 36 months. You know, the average shop will tell you, okay, you got to be in at least 2 or 3 times a year to get your oil changed, right? If you're having somebody else change your oil, you got to be in at least 2 or 3 times if you're putting any kind of mileage on your car. So we thought the 12-month threshold was good. We maybe could have trickled down to 8 to 10 months, but we wanted to keep it 12 to 36 months. We thought over 36 months we probably wouldn't have great success. By that time they may have moved on to somebody, physically moved on to a different shop. Something in their life has changed by then. So we limited to 1 to 3 years had they been into his shop. And here's what we did. I explained this earlier, or touched on this one earlier. We actually sent a real, not big, but a real plastic boomerang. It's about 9.5 inches, tip to tip. You can picture a boomerang in there. And so we put a boomerang with a very simple 1-page front and back sales letter. Put a couple testimonials in there, and we take the letter, we fold it up, and the headline says, and it had their name in the headline. It said, "Dear Eric, we want you back." and then the boomerang's at the letter with the letter, and it says, "Dear Eric." Well, what did it say? So it said, "Dear Eric, you may remember us. We're the guys from Central Avenue Automotive down here in Kent, and John and I, my sales manager, were looking over our files, and we had found that you hadn't been in over a year. In fact, you haven't been in to see us since," and then we put the actual date because he kept that in his database, which is great. And so you haven't been in since August 23rd, 2012. We want to fix that. And so we went in to here's some great offers to get you back in, and oh, by the way, we have our 12-month, 36,000-mile guarantee warranties and all this stuff. And we went into a typical sales pitch for what an auto repair shop would do, and we just we signed the back of it, put the boomerang inside. This was all going locally around him, so we sent a pre-sort mail. I'm going to tell you the cost of this piece, and some of you are going to cringe. And then I'm going to tell you the results of the piece, and then you won't cringe. So we sent out 1,800 pieces, cost them about $2,800, so about $1.50 per piece. So you go, wow, $2,800 for a direct mail campaign. That's crazy. He got back within the expiration date that he set. He had gotten back in sales now, and then we'll talk about the profit. He had gotten back over $25,000 in sales in that 3 to 4 week period from those people specifically bringing in the boomerang and making appointments.
Beautiful.
So let's assume let's assume it's high. Let's assume he's got a 60% cost of doing business, right? Cost him $6 for every $10 just to pay the tech and turn the lights on, right? And, so let's assume 60%. So now he's at $10,000 profit on a $2,000 investment, $2,500 investment. And here's the deal with those inactive clients. That's almost like finding brand new customers. And here's what I mean by that. You're not going to cannibalize any future sales. That's kind of the problem we have when we run sales or promotions and stuff. There's a good chunk of those people that would have bought anyway on full price. We just don't necessarily know who they are right then and there. Well, with
that's a great point.
With an inactive or lost client, they're probably not coming back anyway, unless we remind them. I mean, if they've gone through a certain amount of time where it's time for them to come back and they haven't, we're not cannibalizing that business. It's great business for us. And so he ended up with something like 33 refound customers. And those, so the average ticket ended up being like $600 or $700 because, it was the people who legitimately hadn't brought their car anywhere for years. And so they legitimately needed new timing belt, a new serpentine belt. They needed, new spark plugs. They needed new tires. They literally needed, this wasn't just $30 oil changes. This was, there were some of that. There were some people that said, okay, I need to go get my oil changed, and they took it in, and that's all they got. But the vast majority of them needed more work because they hadn't had their car anywhere, So it wasn't that they had forgot specifically about the guy's name was Blake, Central Avenue Automotive. They just had not taken their car anywhere. And in many, many cases, that may be what your clients are doing. So that was the auto repair shop. The other great one I've seen lately was for a dentist. Now, he does kind of higher-end, implant work and, cosmetic-type stuff. He does the typical checkup and teeth cleaning and that kind of stuff, but his specialty is kind of in that higher-end work. And so this is another thing of using your internal list very, very well to use 3D mail. And he had a bunch of people called what I call, I don't know if he calls them, but what I call appointment no sale. So these were people that, for whatever reason, had come in for a consultation and had their consultative work done on what they needed work on, crowns, bridges, whatever. And they didn't do the program. They didn't do whatever he decided. So he's got a pretty good size list of these people, and once every quarter, he does a direct mail piece using our stuff to those people. And what they typically do is they go back the previous year. So once every quarter, so 4 times a year, if you did a consultation and didn't do the work, so the course over 1 full year, you're going to hear from him 4 more times via direct mail alone. And so he's done things like boomerangs that we just described and the messages in a bottle. This was the best one he ever did. And if anybody wants to challenge me on the numbers, I'll happily send you the email that she sent me with her numbers to the penny. of what they got back. So she sent a worry doll to all these people. So picture in your mind, again, well, actually go to 3dmailresults.com, the letter 3, the letter D, 3dmailresults.com. As you're listening to this, open up another browser, type it in, 3dmailresults.com. You can actually see all these things that I'm kind of describing now. So she sent these little worry dolls. And they kind of look like little voodoo dolls. They're a lot cuter than that. They're not scary or anything. But they're called Guatemalan worry dolls. And there's actually a story behind it. I don't have time to get into it right now. But, so what they do is they take away the worry. And there's a whole story that goes along with it. We included with our sales letters. So what they did is they sent these little worry dolls to the people that hadn't done the work. And, basically the headline was very simple, was, "We're worried about you, ... And the doctor's name is, I think, Larry or Lawrence Anglis. I work with the wife. She's the office manager and marketer. Her name is Nancy Anglis. They're out in Indiana. And so it said, "Dear Tom, hey, it's me, Dr. Anglis out here in Indianapolis, Indiana. And as you know, I work with my wife, Nancy, and she was actually going over our records and saw that you had come in on a consultation." Sound familiar? You had come in on a consultation for a date. And for whatever reason, you didn't do your work with us. And it just went on, very simple, very easy. This one-page, one-sided letter. They spent, and my numbers are a little bit off. But again, if you want to challenge me on it, shoot me an email, and I'll send you her exact email that she sent me. They spent about $2,200 on this. Okay. They got back over $104,000 in dental work off of one mailing. It was actually hilarious. Beautiful. She sent me an email, and it was November. I can tell you the exact date because I was on an airplane when I got it. I happened to be logged on with the airplane Wi-Fi. It was November 6th. I'm looking at the calendar now because that's when I was traveling. And she sent us the email. And we were actually we were actually both traveling to the same seminar that day. She said, "Here's the email. Here's our results." And the next day, we met up with her at the seminar, and she was just ecstatic. Obviously so. I mean, $100,000 dentist is nothing to shake at, especially with quote unquote new business. So that's been a very, very good one for us. Got time for one more example in the B2B world?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So this is a guy. This guy's, you talked about your publisher earlier, having to get to a publisher who is hard to get a hold of and using a bank bag to get him. I actually got two. Same guy. We'll do the one. So he sells really high-end cameras, and these are cameras you put on airplanes, you put on big maritime ships. Just these really high-end things that aerospace engineers are going to be using, maritime engineers are going to be using, things like that. So his customers are big, huge corporations, and to a large degree, the federal government of the U.S. government, and then some with Canada and some in other places as well. And so real high-end, real high-end. He gets one new client a year buying his stuff, and he's doing pretty good. So he actually sent, this is a company up in Canada, and they needed his specialized, what he can do with these camera lenses. And so he actually sent a couple different of these bank bags to the people in the same business. And that's kind of a strategy when you're doing B2B, especially if your transaction and monetary value of a new client warrants it, is to send it to different people in the company, so that they're all kind of getting this thing on and around the same day, and they're all kind of talking about it. And what we often do is, we'll put right away, "Dear Larry, I know it seems funny to get a bank bag, but I want to let you know I also send it to Susie and Tommy in your office as well, so they all know that each other."
That's a great tip too, because I think too also not only it kind of forces that person to kind of go to the other person to talk about it, like you're saying, where everybody's talking about it, because they don't want to be the slacker who didn't mention anything.
Well, yeah, let's say the big boss thinks it's a great idea. Let's say the CEO gets this thing, it's a great idea, and you're the HR person, you report to the CEO, and he gets it. If you don't go and talk to him or her, the CEO, about it first, and he thinks it's a good idea, boy, you look like you're slacking. You look like you're not doing your job. You're exactly
right.
So what had happened is one of the financing people in this office didn't get one because he doesn't need to target that guy. It's not the guy making the decision. But he saw the bank bag sitting on one of the guys' desks, and he thought it was literally a bag full of money from his bank, and that this thing was like going to, he didn't know what was going, he just thought it was their bank had money in it. Whether it was coming or going or leaving, they had no idea. So he actually got a phone call from the president saying, and his name is, Jay Rice is his name. He's out of Massachusetts, Jay Rice. And so he actually got a call from the president of his company. He said, Jay, I got to tell you, you got our whole floor in an uproar here. We can't figure out if this is for us, and then we opened up the thing, and it turns out it's your stuff, and tell me more. I mean, literally, he got this, the 3 or 4 biggest wigs in this office all in an uproar. And some of you might say, oh, I would never want to cause a commotion like that. And I'd say I'd cause a commotion like that in my 100 best customers office every day if I could. And so it was really a cool piece for him. And he's not sending out a ton of these things. He, like I said, he gets 1 or 2 new customers a year. I mean, each customer to him is worth, several $100,000 a year to millions of dollars a year. So he doesn't need a whole lot of new customers. But what he does need to do is get in front of all the decision makers in those companies. And that's how he does it with those kinds of things. He has another one where he used the message in a bottle. I do not know this story quite as well as I knew the last one. Him and I had dinner a couple of years ago, and he was going all over. I mean, he tells the story even better than I do. But another one where he sent up that simple message in a bottle. Targeting, this is cold leads now, but targeting very specific people in his world with a small message in a bottle, very simple message. Dear Mr. CEO, dear Mrs. CEO, you may feel lost with some of your technology and some of the cameras that you're using. The technology moves quicker than any of us can see coming nowadays. But I want to let you know that here at Rice Camera Technologies, we're always on the cutting edge and blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And again, did very, very well for him. Getting in front of just a few people in the one business, he was able to secure that business. So, I mean, it really is a very good way to go about growing your business, whether it's finding leads, finding new customers, or just staying in touch with your current customers.
Yeah, that's a great point. And like we were talking about earlier, I mean, just imagine everybody, you looking in your mailbox and through all the junk mail, there's a bottle sitting there, there's a bank bag, there's the boomerang. All these things can really, not only grab attention, but obviously get it opened, which you need it to do to make money. So Those are great. I mean, and I know we were talking about this before we even got on the call, but, you still even mentioned this, that you still need to use all the good direct mail techniques, the deadline, the offer, the copy, the list, and that's so true. And like you even said, 3D mail is maybe not the magic pill, but I think really it does kind of add the magic to your mailings, and it gets the attention, stands out, which you need to do, especially in this overcrowded marketplace. And, I guess, we were talking, that's awesome. I was thinking, too, because we were talking about, the cold prospecting. Is there other ways that you can maybe tell the listeners how they can use 3D mail, or how 3D mail can be used besides just, the ways we talked about?
Oh yeah, so we talked about the lost clients with the auto repair shop. We talked about the kind of the appointment no sale people with the dentists. We did cold with the camera guy. So I have one guy. He's actually a roofer, and so what he will often do, he doesn't do it all the time. It's part of what he does. It's not the be-all, end-all, but he will go around, and so most roofers, if they're worth a darn when it comes to their marketing and sales, when they go do a roof in a neighborhood, they will start, They will start penetrating that area. So they'll do things like put their signs out, right? This roof brought to you by Guardian Roofing. They will go they will do direct mail letters to in and around the community there. You may have seen our trucks around here, and we're doing a roof over on 54th Street. But what he also does a lot of is door hangers in like the 2 or 3 block radius right around that home. And so often what he'll do, so he gets a little, a little door hanging bag, if you will, the little plastic bag with a thing you stick around the door with a doorknob on it. And so he'll put his leaflets in there, his pamphlets in there, along with a little cover letter and a little treasure chest. Not very big, the size of not even the size of the remote, a third of the size of your remote control at home, real small.
Okay.
Big enough to put a handful of quarters in. It's made to be a kid's toy. And the cover letter, or the lift letter, if you will say something along the lines of, are you protecting the biggest treasure you own, your home? And then the message goes on to say, a healthy home starts at the top. If your roof is leaking or has issues, you could be letting in dust and cold and all this. He goes into scares them, goes into all the reasons of why you need why if your roof is old and decrepit, you need a new one. And so he uses it as a door hanger. We use this all the time, and a lot of my clients will use it. They'll use it as a pre-show. Let's say you do a lot of trade shows in your world. Let's say that's for whatever you do, home shows, you do trade shows, whatever it may be. You can do them as a mailing to those people to drive them to your booth at that show. We often do this. And here's what we do. And this is if you do a lot of trade shows or if you do a lot of home shows and you want to do some proactive marketing, here's what we'll often do. We'll send out, let's say we send out the message in a bottle to the list. And you find your way to our booth, booth number 54, and we're going to have this, that, and the other here that you can take a look at. Well, what we will do then is when our salespeople are working the booth, they will have that message in a bottle in their hand, and as people walk by, if they show any amount of interest whatsoever, and by that I mean they cough and look our way, we say to them, hey, we sent out these messages in a bottle. Did you get them? And almost always, because they almost always get it and they almost always remember it, you get the, oh, yeah, I did get that. I kind of wanted to check you guys out. And so what it does is for your salespeople now is it makes that first contact way easier, way, way easier, right? So now did you get my message in a bottle? And even if, let's say they weren't on the list that you targeted or you had they're the purchasing manager and you got the CEO if you're doing trade shows or, in the professional world. They'll stop and think, I didn't, but so-and-so may have, and then you've got a conversation starter. This works, by the way, very, very well when you do follow-up phone calls. Same idea. So let's say you got your list of people you want to be contacting. Send them a piece of 3D mail. A few days after they get it, call up on the phone and say, hi, this is Travis with 3D mail. I sent you a bank bag in the mail last week. Did you happen to get that?
Yeah, that's a great point. I do that all the time when I send out my bank bags, and every time I either get one or two responses, yes, let's talk, or they laugh and say, yes, I got it, and then we go into our conversation. So they always remember it.
It makes that initial contact by your salespeople so much easier, whether that's face-to-face with the example I just gave at the trade show or over the phone. I mean, it makes that initial conversation so much easier. We do stuff post trade show. So now let's say you went and got a list of all those people. Now you collected business cards. They filled out a contest form to win a free massage or whatever it may be. Now a great way to follow up with them is with 3D mail, right? Because they're kind of hot and heavy for you. They did enough to meet your next threshold of let's talk, if you will, the next logical step. They're theoretically pretty ready to go. I mean, but you need to do something to get in front of them and be remembered. And a little dinky postcard or a few emails may not do that. You probably need to do all the other things we talk about, including 3D mail. So, it all works. It's like I said, it should be a tool in your oversized toolbox already.
Nice. I'm sure all the listeners at home are kind of wondering what we're talking about if they haven't gone to the site yet and seeing. Can you tell everybody, Travis, where they can learn more about all this and learn more about 3D mail?
Absolutely. So it's 3D mail results. So that's the number 3, the letter D, 3D mailresults.com, 3dmailresults.com. And really what I want everyone on the call to do, here's what I would love for them to do. We have, surprise, surprise, a lead generation piece up there. And so, and we call it our definitive guide to using 3D mail. Now, it's going to give you a ton of very good information on 3D mail and direct mail, more so than we could ever get in on this call. It's a 44-page how-to guide for 3D mail, and what it includes is I call it a catalog on steroids, if you will. So it has all of my pieces that we stock, the prices, all the things you need to know to make a buying decision as far as
right.
But also what it has is we've included headline ideas for you. So for the bank bag, we give you like 12 headlines that you can use to get you started. For the boomerang, we give you 5 or 6 headlines that you can use to get you started. And then here's the deal with this, is we also include a CD with it. And the CD has a sales letter template for each of the items that I stock. So there's a template for the boomerang, a template for the bank bag, a template for the compass, on and on and on and on and on. So there's a CD in there as well that gets you started with the actual copywriting process, the actual letter that you're going to send out. So it's a 44-page guide. It comes with that CD. It's completely free. I do mail it. Big shocker there too, right? Because I'm actually a direct mail guy. So we will need your name and a real physical address. P.O. Box works, your home works, your office works, wherever you want it sent. We will need a real address, but we actually mail these things to you, and you'll get this catalog. Very cool information.
It is. I've checked it out too, Travis, let you know, and no matter how experienced they are, whether they've never mailed a piece in their life or their experience, it's definitely, they should check it out, get that, because like you said, not only is there, the examples, you have all the headline examples, everything get them, ready to go. You
got it. And here's the other thing I will tell you. We actually follow up with you using 3D mail. So, not to let the cat out of the bag too much, but you'll start getting some of this stuff. And as you receive this stuff in the mail, and as you react to it, think to yourself, wow, if I reacted like this, how would my customers or prospects react to getting this thing? And so just think about it in that terms too, because we'll often get that. We'll get phone calls. I was kind of, I just wanted your free information. I wasn't really going to do much with you, but then I got that thing in the mail, and I'll wait for you to register to find out what that thing is. I got that thing in the mail, and then I kind of knew I had to at least give you a little more of a look, because I thought it was hilarious when I got it, or it got my attention, or as soon as I walked through the door, my wife or husband or kids made sure that I saw it as soon as I got home, and we get those calls every single day. So FastEasySuccess.com, go and get that free guide.
Yeah, definitely everybody check that out. And Travis, wow, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I definitely want to thank you again, man, for taking the time and sharing everything with us today and all the listeners. And, everybody listening out there, I hope you enjoyed the show, and most importantly, take action and head over to 3dmailresults.com, grab everything Travis talked about. And before we go real quick today, if you could just do me 2 quick favors out there, I'd really appreciate it. Just simply hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future business boosting podcasts. And if you stuck around this far with Travis and I, you obviously enjoyed the show and all the value. So make sure you leave those 5-star reviews with your comments there. We just need your help getting noticed, get all the value out to more people. And I definitely appreciate you tuning into the show today and leaving those 5-star reviews. And when you're done, go ahead and grab your business cheat sheets and free daily email tips waiting for you over at FastEasySuccess.com. I want to thank Travis Lee again over at 3D Mail. And I'm your host, Eric Barton, the Results Specialist, signing out today. And I'll see you next week for another Fast, Easy Success Marketing Insider podcast. And here's to your success.